A rabbit can turn a handful of grass into meat faster than pretty much any animal alive. She can get pregnant again just hours after giving birth. A new litter every single month. And in about 12 weeks, that litter's ready to eat. No farm animal on Earth even comes close to that. So here's the weird part. If rabbit is that efficient, why isn't it next to the chicken and beef at your grocery store? Why does the idea of eating one make so many Americans squirm? Let's just look at the math for a second, because it's kind of wild. A cow needs 9 months to grow inside its mother, then another year and a half before it's ready for slaughter. It drinks a ton of water and eats a mountain of feed to get there. And you get one calf. One. A rabbit? About a month to be born. She can have 6, 8, even 12 babies in one go. And she can be pregnant again the same day she delivers. Do the math over a year, and one rabbit and her babies could outproduce a cow's entire lifetime of meat. Rabbits barely need any water compared to cattle. You don't need acres of land either. A backyard hutch will do. On paper, raising rabbits looks like one of the smartest ways to feed people without wrecking the planet. And it's not just efficient, it's actually healthy. Rabbit meat is leaner than chicken, beef, or pork. More protein per bite, less fat, less cholesterol than all three. Back in the 1940s, nutritionists knew this already. Wartime pamphlets called rabbit one of the healthiest things a family could put on the table. Cheap, lean, easy to raise even in the middle of a city. So rabbit was winning on cost, on health, on efficiency, right before it basically vanished from American plates. And this isn't some hidden secret either. Governments knew all this a long time ago. During World War II, when meat was rationed, the U.S. government told families to raise rabbits in their backyards. They handed out pamphlets on how to do it. It wasn't seen as weird at all. It was just dinner. Then the war ended, and something happened that numbers alone can't really explain. Rabbit eating didn't just slow down in America, it collapsed. Within 20 years, most people had never even tasted it. Meanwhile, chicken, which is actually less efficient to raise, became the biggest meat in the country. So what changed? Part of the answer is disease. In the 1950s, a virus called myxomatosis tore through rabbit populations. It causes sweat, blindness, and a slow, visible 2 years. It wiped out almost the entire wild rabbit population. Newspapers printed photos of rabbits dying, blind, in open fields. And people didn't react the way you'd expect. Instead of shrugging it off, a lot of the public was horrified. For people who just spent years eating rabbit for dinner, watching it get linked to something that horrifying? That did real damage to its image. But that alone doesn't explain why rabbit never came back. For that, you've got to look at what happened outside the farm. After the war, families had more money, more pets, and rabbits, small, soft, quiet, became one of the most popular pets for kids. At the exact same time rabbit farming was fading, rabbit keeping was taking off. And pop culture noticed. Peter Rabbit had already been charming kids since the early 1900s. Bugs Bunny showed up in 1940, quick, clever, always outsmarting the guy trying to eat him. Thumper hopped into Bambi 2 years later. By the time a whole generation grew up, rabbits weren't livestock in their heads anymore. They were characters. They had names. And they always won. Psychologists actually have a name for this kind of discomfort. It's the tension between loving animals and eating them. Most people deal with it by mentally splitting animals into 2 boxes, food and not food. And once an animal lands in the not food box, it tends to stay there. Doesn't matter how efficient it is to raise. Pigs aren't at least as smart as dogs, by most measures. Cows actually form friendships and hold grudges. None of that stops us from farming them at massive scale. Because neither one grew up as a cartoon character in our living rooms. The line was never drawn by intelligence. It was drawn by whatever we grew up loving. There's a second reason, too, and it's got nothing to do with feelings. It's about factories. Chicken didn't just win hearts, it won on the assembly line. Chickens grow fast, they're small, they're uniform, easy to process at scale. Rabbits? Their bodies are oddly shaped. Their bones are delicate. Machines built for other animals shatter them. Processing rabbits at speed takes way more manual labor. So even with all that efficient biology, the economics of scale just never lined up in America. Chicken got the supply chains, the marketing, the fast food empires. Rabbit stayed small, local, a little old-fashioned. Here's where it gets interesting, though. Because nobody eats rabbit isn't actually true worldwide. It's true in a pretty narrow slice of the world. In France, rabbit sits right next to chicken in the grocery store, completely normal. Italy's had rabbit dishes for centuries. Spain, Portugal, China, parts of Latin America, rabbit's just food there. China alone raises more rabbit than the rest of the world combined. Hundreds of millions of them a year, without a second thought. So the real mystery isn't, why don't humans eat efficient meat? Humans mostly do. The real mystery is much smaller. Why did America build this one specific emotional wall around this one specific animal? Right when it was proving itself as one of the smartest proteins on the planet. People have tried to knock that wall down. In the 2000s, chefs started putting rabbit back on menus. They pitched it as sustainable, ethical, a smarter alternative to beef. Fancy restaurants in New York quietly added it to the menu. Turns out a childhood cartoon is harder to undo than any marketing campaign. Doesn't matter how good the argument is. And once you see it that way, this stops being a story about food efficiency. It becomes a story about how random our food rules actually are. There's no biological law that makes a cow dinner and a rabbit a pet. No nutrition rule that puts chicken on your plate and rabbit on your couch. Those lines got drawn by a few cartoons, a scary disease outbreak, and some factories built around a different animal. And now, with land shrinking and water getting scarcer, some researchers are asking a simple question. Is it time to redraw that line? Because for a few years in the 1940s, none of this felt strange at all. Families raised rabbits in the yard, fed them scraps, ate them for dinner, and it just worked. Efficiency was never the problem. What changed wasn't the animal,